Right, let's try this again. It seems to be Spaces having a complete shocker today. Um, welcome to welcome to the Friday Fix with myself and Alex from AlphaPicks. If you're not already, do follow everyone at AlphaPicks. Do subscribe to the Substacks because the content is, to paraphrase, fucking phenomenal. But before we crack on with a roundup of what's been happening this week, courtesy of Big Al, I'll get the legals out of the way. For the second time today, nothing discussed on this Spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice confers any kind of endorsement by PiQ, AlphaPicks, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Big Al. Sorry, Al, you're gonna have to. Luckily, you're
It's
only
all
a minute
right.
or so in. Yeah, massive. And to be honest, I'm gonna kind of be honest. It's nothing to do with me this time. It's I've got perfect reception on my phone. Everything's going swimmingly. I've been on calls today. Yeah, I don't know what's happening in Spaces. We'll just blame.
It's Elon Musk's
Yeah,
fault.
exactly. Right. I'm glad we're on the same
Yeah.
page here.
I mean, the one slight paraphrase into Elon Musk was Tesla and Lucid have joined forces. Did you see that?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't expect that, to be honest.
Yeah. But anyway, no, going back to the main news, and it's actually good because it helps me to paraphrase second time around. So the paraphrase version of Donald Trump's actions this week was that the EU tariffs he put on last weekend didn't have any lasting impact
Yes.
on investor sentiment, which is trading higher. The only thing that Trump did, which did cause a short-term market reaction this week, was when the news broke of him allegedly waiving Powell's firing letter
Yeah.
to a closed door meeting of Republicans. And essentially, when that news broke, we did see a fairly sharp drawdown. About, I think NASDAQ was down about 80 basis points on in the intraday, and Treasury yields popped higher, dollar came off. And then the story was quickly refuted
But this is it,
as
right? So this is the crazy thing. So literally, there's multiple people have saying, yeah, he was walking around like this letter waving it in the air. So then like a few people have gone to the media about it, and he gone, no, I don't know what they're on about, mate.
yeah,
It's like
I
3 or
know.
4 people have just come out and said this is exactly what you've done. No, they've obviously just someone else.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in my point of view, and actually, I was talking to a couple of guys on this yesterday, which I think made a very valid point. Although I don't know if Trump is this smart, but actually, that it was more of a sort of testing of the markets,
Oh,
testing the
yes.
waters to see how it react. Which I wouldn't put it past Trump, but I think someone definitely would needed to have whispered in his ear that oh, actually, sir, market's taking it rather badly.
Well,
Um,
this is it. Like, I
so
mean,
yeah.
yeah, let's be honest. I don't think anyone can doubt that it did happen. Whether or not it was a trial balloon or whether or not he's just gone, fuck, I've just seen the market reaction, I'm going to walk that back. But I think I think
Mm,
everyone's aware that it did actually happen. But yeah, this regardless of what's being said, and obviously he was out this morning saying like, "I'll cut rates too late" or something like that. So it's all kicking off
mm,
still. But
mm.
legally, there's not much he can do about it. I know I've seen reports that he's trying to tie in the Fed building upgrades,
Yes.
something to do with,
So it's fraud.
yeah. I'm not quite sure how that works, but okay. But I would
Yeah.
say, I'm not saying I'm right on this, but I'm looking more right than wrong. I said last week that with everything that's been going on with the Epstein files, if they exist or not, they do. But I said, look, don't be surprised if Trump gets much louder on the Powell story because he's looking for anything to try and move the media cycle. And that appears that appears to be working. We're all talking about what's going on with Trump and Powell now. You know, apart
Mm,
from small cohorts on like social media and stuff, there's not that many people really talking about the Epstein files anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's all about news
mm,
cycle. Now, do I think that Trump will get rid of Powell? No. Do I think? I think there's a very slim chance on that. Do I think there's a potentially a better chance that Powell might go, do you know what? I just can't be dealing with this anymore. I can walk into fucking Goldman's, I can walk into BlackRock, get paid a couple of mil a year, get paid a couple of mil a year onto the speaking circuit, and I don't need this bullshit. Now, is there a chance he
mm,
might do that before his term ends? Yeah, there is. There's a better chance than him being fired from Trump, although I still think it's unlikely, if that makes sense.
mm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think as much as Powell basically comes out and is like, I'm not bothered. I'll keep doing my job, keep being independent. Obviously, there is only so much you can take
Yeah,
with
right.
this pretty
Yeah,
incessant
yeah. If you're being
barrage.
called a fuckwit every
Um,
day, you're gonna go, oh, mate, fuck off.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think, I do agree with you from the extent of, I think the probability of Powell resigning is higher than the probability of Trump finding cause for fraud to remove him, but would still assign both probabilities fairly
Yes,
low.
yeah, no, exactly.
Um, I mean, ironically though, is as a little hedge trade that we put on our portfolio this week, is basically long the twos tens,
Ooh,
which at the minute is at like 50. Well, it was at 54 basis points when we put it on, but I think could sort of track higher. And the thinking there is that more on like the 10-year yield is that if you do see Powell go, you would probably see a blowout in the 10-year and any sort of duration longer than that. So I think that's kind of a proxy. And obviously, you're thinking about implications of if Powell
yes,
goes. We part equities to one side for a minute. It's the rate space where I think you'll see a real move. And obviously, you could argue, does Trump want yields spiking? Probably not. Um, the other side of it is the dollar. And I think you'd see a very material move lower in the
yeah, yeah,
dollar
yeah.
with Powell going. And again, that's something, although Trump, arguably doesn't want a strong dollar, he doesn't want
No,
a dollar in
well,
free fall.
this is it, and exactly. But then pulling back to equities, and this is why you mentioned before. Well, I think it was in the first report about equities new all-time highs, etc., etc. We know for a fact, path of least resistance is higher for equities. It always will work, because of what happens in the world now, the way it works. You've got billions coming in on passive flows every week, etc., etc. But also, people are looking beyond Powell now, and whoever comes in after Powell is going to be dovish as fuck. Let's
Mm,
be honest. If it comes from, if the new Fed governor comes from the FOMC themselves, the two people most likely, well, one of them Waller, these are the two most dovish people on the FOMC because they're trying to curry favor with Trump. If it comes outside of the Fed Reserve, so we're looking at Hassett and whatnot, Bezant, that both of them, they're going to be Trump's puppets, so they're going to cut rates straight away as well. They're going to
mm,
lead the FOMC to try and cut rates as quickly as possible, which is why I think it's another reason for stocks to go higher or risk assets to go higher because we are like it or not, Powell is his days are numbered, regardless of it's he leaves early or if he just leaves. The next person to come in is going to be dovish. It's the way
mm,
it's laid out, which is why I think it's even more fuel for the bids in risk assets. Don't know what
mm.
you think of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think that in comparison to something like rates and the dollar, which are a lot more driven by monetary policy implications, equities do have that slightly more diversified reach of, for example, earnings, let's say. And so, you can have a situation whereby Powell, you've got a more dovish Fed chair for sure. But if you're still a company that's outperforming earnings, then the stock can keep heading higher. And that's another factor. We've obviously only seen has kicked off this week properly. And so far, as we've seen from them shrugging off the tariff concerns at the start of the EU and cracking record highs, earnings seem to been pretty good. I think like Netflix was a great example overnight, which is a very good sort of finger on the pulse of like consumer spending. And Netflix performed very well. We also saw the other one was Taiwan Manufacturing Co. TSMC. They blew earnings out of the water as well, which again bodes very well for like a continued AI spending and the trend there. So it's like if you have continued optimism on earnings, both on key themes like AI and also on more sort of consumer, um, maybe not consumer staples is the wrong word, something like Netflix. I guess it is consumer discretionary, but the state of the consumer being healthy, those are arguably as important factors in driving the market higher than the Fed chair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, it's interesting to say, kind of, you're saying it without saying it, but you're kind of saying these new like Netflix, etc. These are kind of, you could argue these are the new consumer bellwether stocks, right?
Mm,
Used to be back in the Dow days, Caterpillar was
yeah,
always seen as the bellwether.
Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, exactly that. But times are changing, and people, the consumer is getting more online. So yeah, your Amazons and your Netflix, they are more your bellwether stocks. And funny, I think we got 3M reporting before. I think it's
It
before the
is,
bell.
yeah,
Sorry
yeah.
if they've reported. Yeah, that was always seen as one of the bellwether stocks. So the times they are changing.
It's true. And in terms of times changing, slightly dodgy transition. Times are changing. I wanted to flick onto UK inflation when we're talking about times are
Oh God,
changing.
that is a very
It's a
tenuous link. I'm
tenuous link,
sorry.
but times are changing in the UK because UK's inflation rate 3.6%, up from 3.4% in May, and the highest reading in 18 months. And because these, let's not forget that if we rewind back to last year, the inflation actually got below, was 1.9%, got below the Bank of England's target. Everyone was like, perfect, like we're all good. And we're sitting here now,
Field of wheat.
yeah, the other way. And it's like we're at 3.6%. And all of a sudden, we're talking about how things change. My favorite one was our friend Rachel Reeves said, there's more to do.
Yes.
There's more to do. It's
Yeah.
like, really, Rachel? That's a stunning
Stop.
observation.
Stop.
Um,
But,
yeah.
but this is it, right? And again, apologies for a rant and the swear words that are about to come out of my mouth. But fucking hell, like this is exactly what we said would happen. You increase the employers' contributions to national insurance. Everyone said straight away this is the worst thing you can do because they're going to, hiring's going to drop, inflation's going to go up. It's almost binary outcome for what she was doing,
Mm,
and and that's exactly what we're seeing. And she's like, she guarantees she has no idea where it's going wrong. And it just winds me up. And the problem is, we're not even being told things are going to get better. We've basically been told that come the the autumn budget, taxes are going to go up.
mm,
I mean, if you can, anyone in the UK listen to this, if you can, save yourselves. Get out whilst you still can.
mm. Is that the rant?
Fucking,
Is that the rant over?
I want to throw her in the fucking Thames.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, sorry.
it's one, and the thing is, when you look at the sort of factors in there as well, in addition to the points you mentioned, food price inflation was up for the third month in a row, and I definitely think it doesn't take a genius to work out that when you go out and about in terms of food, beverages, even the staple basket of goods, it is getting more expensive. And obviously, motor fuel cost was another point that was flagged up in it. Um, and yeah, I think it's one where the knock-on implications of that is that the Bank of England, who still actually, even after the report, after the inflation print came out, the market's still pricing in two cuts through to the end of the year. And I would say that's pretty rich. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we see that two become one, because
When two
when
become
two become one,
one.
it's a little AI Spotify shuffle. Yeah,
AlphaPicks
yeah,
karaoke.
because also it's scarily accurate because the Bank of England they forecasted inflation to get to 3.7% by Q4 of this year,
Yeah,
which actually is looking pretty spot on. And then so it's like
yeah,
you can make an argument that the Bank of England forecasts are basically coming true, and based on their forecasts, they were still in a happy position to cut twice this year. So that's the argument as to why we haven't seen rates materially change the pricing. But I
yeah.
would argue personally that depending on what happens in this autumn budget as well, is I just struggle to see the Bank of England being able to cut twice between now and the end of the year with justification. I mean, what's their justification? The justification they have is that actually we're really concerned about the state of the economy. But
I'll be honest. I think that's a very valid justification.
but the thing is their
I
mandate is more a case of price stability.
Yeah, no, well, exactly that. But like I said, if you're on Fred Needle Street, and I think Michael Brown kind of said this earlier on in the week. If you're on Fred Needle Street right now, if you're sitting in the Old Lady, so Bank of England, for anyone that doesn't know that, you before this moment, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. That rock is getting a lot rockier, and that hard place is getting a lot harder. Um, um, do you know what I
Spoken
mean?
like
Though
a
it's
true
like I
Somerset lad.
got well, thank you, mate. Right, my darling. But no, I honestly, I'm genuinely fearful for what's coming. I used to, obviously, fuck the French and all that. I voted out, but I used to love pointing fingers and like laughing at the French. And we're not the French people. If anyone French is listening, I love you. But the French economy and the French government. But now I'm looking back at what's happening here, and we're we're at the same kind of standards. Thankfully the budget's not quite as bad, but we're in a similar like perils. You know, you got Labour government about to allow 16, 17-year-olds to vote just because they need to try and bribe some people to vote for them. It's all falling apart. Oh,
Anyway,
is anyone on the continent? Let me know.
We'll leave that point there. But yeah, I think definitely, an interesting one to watch. The last one I wanted to talk about was it's been crypto week, hasn't it? Happy crypto week for everyone
Yes.
in the game. And we've seen Bitcoin obviously fly, hit 122,600. Burgeoning ETF inflows. Obviously, the bill got passed yesterday, just needs to go to Mr. Donald Trump to get a little sign off, which is inevitable. Also, in terms of some of the bank earnings this week, they were chatter. The one I spotted from my old boss Jane Fraser at City, who actually is in Canary Wharf. She's in London at the minute. If anyone wants to stop by, she basically said that they're looking at issuing a City stable coin, and even JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon was talking about having a stable coin and a JP Morgan deposit coin was what he was referencing to. So I think it's clear it's one-way traffic on crypto sentiment, which is great. And the only thing which I was actually discussing with Jesse yesterday is when we look at like expressing this theme, because yes, you can say, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, which it isn't a bad idea, but
it's not too bad, is it?
It's not too bad.
All time
Not too bad. But in terms of like the juice and the sort of risk reward and everything you get from buying Bitcoin above 120k right now, it's actually thinking more on the sort of second order, like with the stable coins, and you could say like with the Circle IPO again, has the big return sales on that potentially. And I think you start to mull over ideas like City stock, for example, or JP Morgan stock, in terms of who are the companies that might be issuing stable coins that could really commercialize it, and actually looking more as to those in the equity space, which can potentially offer better sort of risk adjusted returns than basically buying Bitcoin. And I think that's something I'm trying to think of.
Just to stress, the answer to this is not strategy. It's not microstrategy.
No. I mean, I know. If anything, like I've been itching. I mean, I haven't, but I am still itching to short MicroStrategy just based on the the premium that it has, that I feel is just going to get eroded.
I just don't. Well, we all know where I stand on this. I think it's complete Ponzi, to be honest. I just don't see. There's so many other better ways of getting Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and obviously we've got Cam with Crypto Blast coming up shortly, and that's something that Cam has been going on about for a long time. There's so many better alternatives to strategy now. But yeah, it's interesting. I know Cam mentioned previously about miners might be like the play and stuff like this. But yeah, there's it's hard. It's one of the hardest things to do is buy all-time highs. But if you just take a step back, one of the most profitable trades to do is buy all-time highs. Because one all-time high normally leads to a few more.
No, it's true. And as a final one, which is a new segment actually, which is called "How is Alex's Palantir position going?" Because
you smug little prick.
we spoke about this last week, I think, and a month ago, and it was a case of I need to sell my Palantir stock because it's very frothy. It's the epitome of a bubble, but every time I log in, it just keeps going up. And from where we were last time, it's up 8%, 8.3% since we last spoke on Friday. So I'm still itching to sell, but I can't. And so join us again next Friday for an update on the Palantir position.
You absolute prick. I'm living a Palantir long through you, so I'm happy. Well, look, Alex, absolutely pleasure as always. Thank you for everything. Again, people listening, I cannot stress this enough. Do follow Alex and Jesse. Do follow the AP Research account. Do subscribe to their free Substack because the content they put out is excellent. And see if you can get a free trial on their paid one as well, because it is a fucking good resource. But honestly, mate, thank you so much as always, and wish you a very good weekend. Same listeners. And yeah, much love. See you all next
All
week.
good. Thanks, Ryan. Catch you in a bit. See you,
Yeah,
mate.
mate. Bye bye.